how are you tapping into that? Or how are you trying to tap into that, I guess?
So many different ways.
Yeah.
Therapy.
Okay.
Therapy. A lot of research. And again, this is what I love, love, love about what music can do for us. Warangu helped me become a researcher and a reporter for not our mob, but like for my engagement with culture. I can't speak for anyone else but myself. This album is heading into a lot of psychology because I'm heading into like these beautiful, just on the fringes because I'm not a scientist, but these pockets of like neuroscience and tenacity and willpower. And so I'm reading a lot of stuff about. I'm on podcasts with Andrew. Like I'm listening to Andrew.
Where do you feel like you went from student to maker? Like your
Dope.
creative journey?
I think as a kid, being a massive student of hip hop, Lupe Fiasco, Missy Elliott, Snoop Dogg, Eminem, The Far Side, MF Doom, trying to learn and then even analyze like what they were doing in their raps. I was like a big student trying to imitate them. And then Maker kind of happened soon after that. Like once I realized that I kind of was tired of trying to mimic and be like Snoop Dogg. Like a lot of my early stuff, like if you looked at any of the songs that I made when I was 14, 15, it's all just me pretending to be Snoop Dogg.
Cool. Yeah.
Like the flow is like him. I remember, you remember in high school when you would have, or sorry, primary school when you would have like we called it drop everything and read, dear, where you would have to bring a book and then you would just read it for I don't know, like an hour or like 30 minutes in the day.
Yeah.
Each Wednesday or something. And I would bring in, so some people brought like Lemony Snicket or like Harry Potter books, and I brought in Eminem's Encore.
Oh, okay.
Like the CD lyric booklet. And I'd be like trying to figure out how to rap and, trying to understand what his lyrics meant and how the rhythm worked and why I liked it so much because I didn't know, like I was just young. And that came from me being like, oh, I want to try and write like that, and started to perform like that and then write like that. And then in the midst of it, try and make my own story.
When did you start writing your own style rather than trying to emulate?
I'd say around year 8.
Okay.
I think I was like 14 years old. And I wanted to write about my life. Big thing in my youth was like my parents' separation, trying to like understand that. And I kind of was like, oh, hey, here's something that I'm using and I'm engaging in this hip hop music. How does it benefit? How can I use that to tell and express how I feel, like to tell that story and talk about, what I was feeling in all of it, the frustration, going back and forth. And that was like, oh, there's my voice, in the early stages of it.
Yeah. Was there a catharsis to it?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was definitely very cathartic. And then from there, I was like, I think we were just yarning about it before, like there's like a magic that you kind of engage with. And then ever since, it's just been me trying to find that magic again, trying to like recreate it, recapture that magic. And it gets harder and harder to do as you get older.
Sure. Do you feel like that's the same as like finding creative flow, or is it a different thing?
I think it's a different thing. Yeah. Because you can have a creative flow, but I think the actual harnessing a fire, like a bit of a, there's like something there. Rick Rubin calls it source,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Like in the book, like he talks about connecting to source. I feel like we can be creative for a job.
Yeah.
We can be creative for a commission. We can be creative for like a gig on that night when we like, have 2 weeks to write it and there's a deadline and there's a budget and there's all of these politics behind it. But the actual connecting to source, I think, is almost entirely separate. And that's hard. That's, for me anyway, that's lately been rare or at
Yeah.
least like just a glimpse of it.
But it's something you feel like you tapped into at that early age and then,
Yeah.
but like you just naturally came to it.
Well, as a kid, it was so raw.
Yeah.
It's so funny. I was just talking about this with someone this morning. Because as a kid, you have no fear. Like when you're in your bedroom and you're trying to write raps and you're trying to tell your story and you're inspired by Eminem and Kanye West,
Yeah.
Jay-Z, like you're fearless because you don't have the politics, you don't have the budget concerns, deadlines, how to make a living, how to pay your rent.
You don't know enough.
You don't know enough,
Yeah.
and you don't have any worries about like how are people going to like it because you don't care about that.
Yeah.
All you care about is making it for yourself and how does it make you feel. So it's this absolute beautiful direct symbiotic connection between you and the source and the creation, and that's the relationship in its rawest form. And I don't know if it's harder to connect to that because you almost have to like you have to find that with all of these other things considered, or maybe it's about ignoring all of those things. I don't know. Yeah, it's hard.
I was thinking about like first albums recently and like how for so many people their first album is that raw like tapping into something and then like they spend maybe the rest of their career trying to refine that, but also they have all of this extra knowledge and around like the tools and the things that can go into it that they almost get overloaded with information around like the how to do it.
Totally.
And then I was thinking about like because you've just released your first album fairly recently, which
it is the like I felt that for sure, the overwhelming feeling of like there's so much, and I feel that like on the software level, on the what do I want to write about level, and I think that is the cause of having limited resources as a kid. Like in its most basic form, you got your pad and your pen, or
tell me like what were your like writing tools as a kid? Like what were your skill set? And
I was such an Eminem wannabe.
Okay,
for real. Like I like because I like one of my favorite films was 8 Mile, and so I would literally be like that. Like I would be on the school bus with like a book, like my rhyme book. I was inspired by Scribe as well from New Zealand. Like and his album Rhyme Book in 2007, 2006. That was a big inspiration for me too, because I was like, oh man, like that's how you do it. That's how you become a rapper. You got to always write. And so I had a rhyme book. I had my iPod Nano, and I had like my headphones, and I would wear them. It became my identity. So I was just constantly thinking about lines.
Yeah,
rhymes.
Were you like already trained? Like you were playing piano and drums?
Yes. Yeah. From age 7. Yeah. So I had the ability and the privilege to start learning piano at age 7.
And like proper learning. Like really.
Man, I went through the whole thing, like the AME, B exams, because mom wanted me to like get into it as a kid. And I fell in and out of love with it for sure. You know, like as a kid, it really inspired me. But then during high school, I started to feel it was more of a chore than a passion.
For sure.
But then that's when drums came in, and like drums was a massive, you know, explosion of inspiration. It made sense to me, you know, musically. So that was kind of like year 8, around 14, 13 years old.
Where did you grow up?
Grew up in Warilla.
Okay.
Yeah, south of Wollongong.
Yeah.
In the south coast.
Like when you're in year 8, what was the like music scene like? Was there bands and stuff in your school that you were a part of?
Not in school, definitely not in school, but in the Wollongong Conservatorium of Music. And the whole way this story goes is like I was watching someone play, her name was Demi. She was playing the drums in some school assembly. I was in like year, I don't know, 7 or something. And I just happened to be sitting in front of the drum kit, cross-legged on the floor, like where we were lined up. And she was playing so loud, and I was like it was, the sound was banging into me.
You could feel
and
it.
I was like, far out, this is the shit that I want.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And then so from there, I got drum lessons from the drum teacher that came to the school like the year afterwards, Sally Wiggins. And I started learning drums. And after like a few lessons, she actually recommended to me, she was like, Ryan, I want you to, I'm going to recommend you to Eric Dunan, the jazz teacher at the Wollongong Conservatorium. She was like,
huge.
For me as a kid, I'm like, I don't know what jazz is, right?
Yeah.
Like, I liked it because my dad sometimes played it.
Okay.
From time to time.
What artists?
Well, his love and knowledge of jazz grew with mine. But at the time, it was like a little bit of Quincy Jones. It was more or less like Ray Charles.
Okay.
So more on the blues side, right?
Yeah.
But and then for mum, it was like Jackson 5.
Okay, cool.
Diana Ross, Lionel Richie, like all of those, you know, cool cats. But and so she recommended me to Eric and said, I want you to go to learn and play at this jazz orchestra. And we called him up and he was like, cool, bring wooden sticks. And I was like wooden tipped sticks. And I was like, okay, this is weird. This is like a cult or something.
Yeah.
I was like, why just wooden? Because it damages, like the plastic tips on your drumsticks can damage the cymbals.
Yeah, right. I didn't even realize.
Yeah, and
I think we always just had wooden tip.
Totally,
sticks,
yeah. You don't really see them as much these days, actually.
Plastic tips?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay, yeah.
But and then I went, and it to this day is one of the best experiences of my life, learning jazz. And I realized that I am a big band drummer, like not just a jazz drummer, but like being in a big band.
Yeah.
So one of my ultimate goals is to come back to that.
Oh, cool.
You know, I need to figure out my Venn diagram of rap and big band jazz, because it's been done before plenty of times.
Yeah, like Donny Trumpet. And
man. Yeah. So it's like it's definitely not a new thing.
Yeah.
But that's my love. Like that's big band jazz like changed my life.
Cool.
It changed my music and career for the better. Yeah.
Describe your like setup at home at that time. Like did you have drums and did you have piano?
I had an upright piano that still sits at my mum's place.
Oh, that's
which is
special.
wild, man. Yeah. So we rented it out. Sorry, we lay by it.
Yeah,
you
like
know,
rent to buy kind of thing.
Rent to buy or whatever. And it took years, but she paid it off. And I'm so happy that we have that there because
amazing.
I don't know, man, like it represents so much. And there's nothing better than an actual piano in a home.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
We grew up with one as well.
Yeah. And then before that point, like it was just pad and pencil.
Cool.
I didn't have like a computer or anything. I went into high school, this school here, Corpus Christi in Oak Flats. they were one of the first schools. This is like 2006, right? So before you had laptops introduced into education nationally, this was before that. So this was about maybe 2 years before that.
The computer lab kind of
Exactly. Corpus Christi was actually, I think, if not the first, then one of the first schools in the country to introduce like a Mac laptop for every student.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But it was still like, there were still payment plans to be able to make it work. It wasn't like blown out of the water expenses.
Yeah.
And I was like, my God. And my best friend, Nat, she was going to go to that school. And I like begged my parents, like, can we try? Can we try? So we made it work, right?
Okay, yeah.
And so I went to this school. And all of a sudden I had this MacBook, 2006 MacBook with GarageBand on it. And that's like...
That was your...
That was my shit, you know? Like,
yeah.
Then I started playing with the Apple loops. I started bringing in tambourine loops, drum loops, I don't know, guitar loops, and just making really cringeworthy songs and then rapping over the top and knowing that you got to, you know, speak into the microphone on your earphones. That's where the mic is. It was all of that stuff. And it was really like just an explosion of creativity. And then when the MacBook started to have CD players and you could burn stuff onto a CD, I was like, I can make an album.
I can make a mixtape.
I can make a mixtape. I can make an album. And so I started like making ones. I got the CD labels, you know, the blank CD labels, and I would write Dobby on it.
Yeah, so that was really kind of your first
mixtape.
album.
Yeah, exactly. So I still have an album that I never like copied. It's so funny. It's called Dobby Pop-Tarts of Freedom because I was like 12.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, Pop-Tarts of Freedom. And it's got like 20 tracks on it. And I never copied it. And then there's another album after that called 2008. And that's about 15 tracks where I actually like, I went to, I took my savings and copied that. I photocopied that. What do you call it? Like I made copies of that CD.
Sure, yeah.
Like 100.
You did a run.
Yeah, man. Cool. I did a run of CDs on this album called 2008. And
did you like make an album cover for it?
Yo, I did. Yeah. And I brought them to school and I would sell them. And I was like, hey, to my friends, to other people. I became quite popular in school because I was like, hey, here's my music. Buy my you know thing for $10 or $15 with a USB. And I bought USBs and I put it on the USB as well. You know?
Like you just had to get it out there. Like that
I had to get it out there.
And that was how you did that back then. Yeah.
And then back in the day on iTunes, you could share your playlist.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
So I had my whole album.
Cool.
And people could share music from while we were working. Sometimes in assessments and it would say on my laptop, 5 people out of 5 listeners are listening to your music.
Cool.
Like while I was working, I was like, this is crazy. Like, you know, and that's.
Did you like, was that a feeling you were like hearing, like you're reaching other people with your music at that time and you're like, this is something I want to do.
It was the change that it's the change I wanted to see in myself and the person that I wanted to be in myself, where I was like, oh, I'm really that rapper who's putting music out there and having people listen to it, and I'm selling it just like I heard about, you know.
Cool.
You know, and people liked the music. That was the craziest part because people would be like, hey, I was listening to your songs and thing, you know.
Would they ever be available anywhere?
Well, so that's the 2 albums. First one's very cringy. The second one's a bit less cringy. There's some good moments on there. And then there's a third album, again, called The Royal Flame. I made this in 2009. It's called The Royal Flame, about 20 tracks. I did another run. I did about 100 copies of it.
Cool.
And I never released it.
Oh, okay.
You know?
Yeah. Do you still have copies of the original? Like...
Are you editing this podcast?
We can cut this out if you want.
Okay.
We don't have to.
Can I give you 2 answers? Because I have an idea right now.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, cool. No, I don't have any copies left.
Okay. Tristan is giggling.
Okay, here's the second take. Yes, I have some copies left.
Okay. And what do you what?
We'll talk about this after.
Okay, for sure. Yeah. Would you ever like release these early Dobby takes?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You're like, okay, something's cooking here now.
Because the plan here is that with this Marshmallow album.
Okay.
This may or may not be off camera.
We can jump around. Like,
yeah, we might jump around.
Yeah.
Make a note of this. Because my plan is to like put out this Marshmallow album and then a few months later I'm gonna release those songs.
Okay.
Because it's like a callback to that. But if I want to follow a storyline here about me going back in time to save it, then therefore there are no copies that exist today.
Oh, cool.
I need to go back in time to save them.
Oh, sick. So like,
maybe this podcast is the moment where I'm like, I've lost it.
Okay, yeah. Cool. So like Marshmallow is kind of like a conceptual piece.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And we can get into that.
Yeah. We can talk about that. This is good. Background research. How did you go from sort of making solo in that way to working with other people?
Yeah.
Because you were still in high school.
Well, because I've always wanted to find people that understood my passion, would not understood my passion, but like that also had a passion for music, should I say? And more specifically, hip hop. Like, there's one friend that I had as a rapper in high school who also loved hip hop music just as much. Urchi Lee, and he's a mad pianist. He's a great friend of mine, and we went to the conservatorium together. Like us two, we played in the jazz orchestra. But he and I, like, we would talk about Lupe Fiasco's The Cool all the time. We talk about Food and Liquor all the time, the album. And, he even like found on, I don't know how he found this, but like DJ turntables and was like, Dobby, check this out. And I was like, that's crazy, man. And, for my 18th birthday or 17th birthday, he fitted out my car with like, because he's a car freak.
Okay.
He fitted out my car with a subwoofer.
Okay. Did you know he was doing this? Or
no,
was
yeah. I knew.
I'm like, my
it's like, what are you doing in my car,
and it has
man?
come back with a subwoofer. Yeah.
But and I was like, yo, like, I'm like, how can I thank you, man? This is really lovely. And he said, just get me some McNuggets.
Okay. Okay.
I was like, so he and I, we would freestyle together.
Cool.
He made me feel like hip hop wasn't just something that was in my head, because at the time, like, you got to understand, back in the day, it wasn't a pathway. There weren't rappers coming to schools doing workshops. There was no perceived notion of you can make a living out of it, let alone be famous or successful or whatever you want to call it. It wasn't a thing. Hell, jazz was even struggling to be recognized as a degree in those years. It was still looked down upon at the Sydney Conservatorium. So hip hop had no chance. It had no chance. The only times I would ever feel like I was respected as a hip hop artist was with Urchi or at the skate park, when I would find some other people who loved 50 Cent just as much as me, and they'd like try and freestyle and we would be terrible.
Okay, cool. Did you skate as well?
Nah.
No. Just hung out.
I tried. I wasn't very good.
Yeah.
But so I don't know. It's interesting now, like, seeing how far it's gotten, and when you can see kids understanding that there is an actual pathway in hip hop music, that makes sense for so many different avenues, whether it be education or language or ecology.
Sure. Yeah. Oh yeah. I think I remember like early days when I first started hearing your name on the scene, and like very much as a drummer with like the rap kind of as part of the show. And you were doing like kind of solo shows. Boomerang or Blues Fest.
Yeah.
How did you were you signed then, or was that like pre kind of?
Around that time, no, it wasn't. It was just working with Viv as my manager.
Yeah.
So she and so we met through Big Sound 2017, and then I guess I started that style.
Was that
made sense to me.
2017? I feel like it was
2017.
earlier. Right.
Boomerang was 2019.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
So end of 2017 is when I kind of started to, like, I don't know, quote unquote, be professional about this.
Yeah.
But and yeah, man, like I was kind of putting forward the drum kit rapping sort of thing. I still am doing it, but it's
a part of the mix.
Exactly, and I think there's different ways that I can kind of engage it now.
Yeah. What was the process for you going from like those 3 high school albums to that 2017 sort of, I'm doing professional now?
Yeah.
How did you become to define yourself as a professional artist?
I think it answered a lot of questions for me. So on the plus side, I was going back into it with more zest and drive and more know-how, because people like Viv, people who in this industry, like Music New South Wales, Create New South Wales, APRA, now Natsumo, all the mob, like they help you understand these are the ways that you can get paid.
Sure.
These are the ways that you can get yourself in front of the right people to get your Triple J play or your whatever.
When did you start encountering them?
Big Sound.
Big Sound. Yeah.
Big Sound. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
I feel like that was kind of like the first introduction to all of that stuff.
What made you decide to go to Big Sound then?
It was Viv.
It was Viv?
Yeah. Viv forced me to apply.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, because I didn't understand it at the time. I was like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah. Because like, you'd just come out of high school then, or like a couple of years out?
No, not even. No. So I finished high school 2011.
Oh, okay. Right.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And did you were you making music in between then? And
So I did my a Bachelor of Music, more focusing on the drums and jazz. Yeah, through uni. And then
what was that like?
Great. Yeah, well, it was good. It was good. I what's the word? I say that with a grain of salt because I think I don't know if people necessarily need a bachelor's degree in music to be a musician. I think that's it's a loaded thing.
Yeah, I dropped out of my arts degree, so
right. So and like the biggest thing that I got from it was the networking.
Yeah,
I'm in a band called Jackie Brown Jr. and we all went to uni together. Cool. So that band wouldn't have happened if we didn't meet at uni. That being said, though, you know what I mean? It's not necessarily about what I learned. YouTube is an incredible source. You know what I mean? Like and playing together is really where the heart of music performance and creation is at.
Yeah, but it's that like you went to uni in person.
Yeah.
And like there's the sort of location and environment for spending time with other people at that similar level.
Yeah.
So you get this like chance to play in that space with
100%.
your contemporaries.
100%. And all of this is to say that it's not that I regret it. I loved it. I had a great experience. And there were challenging times, but I don't know if it was necessarily as challenging as someone doing a law degree in terms of like what they need. Like,
sure.
I couldn't imagine, being like, oh, to be a doctor, I need this med science degree and I got to pass and all of this stuff. A lot of the time for me, it was very chill.
Yeah.
I was like, well, I failed
so.
this. We had general electives and I was like, I got a pass conceded in psychology because it was so interesting, but very tough.
Right.
Far out.
Yeah.
But what was really rewarding was after the degree. I did I was like a lab rat. I was one of the first people to undertake the Indigenous Studies honors degree with the with the ATSI disciplinary department.
Okay.
Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Studies.
Yeah.
So I got to do a thesis about hip hop music, about Indigenous hip hop music. So I just wrote about all my favorite artists. I wrote about Jimbla. I wrote about The Last Connection. I wrote about Briggs. I wrote about Dara, Dreaming Now's brother.
Yeah.
But this is all everything, pre-Baker Boy, pre-AB Original, Barker. Like
the
this
explosion.
is like, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, the research that I'd done is outdated now, because that's how fast moving hip hop is. But that opened doors for me. It was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. I wrote 25,000 words on the power of hip hop and how it connects to culture, or rather how culture connects to hip hop. And I ended up, doing like tutoring and lecturing in this field and, writing more publications and whatnot. And that's allowed me to now do more lectures and workshops and stuff,
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
How did that like sort of inform the next stage of things?
It positioned me well within the Venn diagram of where I was aiming to be. I knew that in my life, all I wanted to do is either something to do with Indigenous culture, affairs, studies, whatnot, and hip hop music. And I was right in the middle. So thankfully, luckily, and I'm grateful to say that the people that I wrote so much about and frankly look up to, Fred Leone,
Absolutely.
I am now part of that conversation, which is crazy. Like it's a pinch me moment because I guess I got inspired by all the stuff that I was, reading about,
Yeah, you went from being an appreciator to being in the conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, and that's a tool in my toolkit that I'm really grateful to have. It's, it's not a necessary thing, but it helps inform who I want to be in the space.
Yeah.
Do
I guess like doing a PhD, my understanding of it is you're doing a lot of analysis and thinking about things from that sort of point of view, that perspective. Do you find that still turns on sometimes in these like, are you still looking at
the
things
analytical
from
perspective?
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a healthy relationship between, trying to just be
In it.
And that whimsical kid-like enthusiasm towards music and performance, but also really seeing and breaking down and analyzing what you're seeing in front of you, It's hard, right? And I was talking to a couple of people about this before, friends of mine that dropped out of music because they were like, it just became like a job. So this is a big yarn. Like what do you do if you're like finding yourself not enjoying what you're doing, Thankfully, for me personally, I haven't gotten to that level where I'm like, this isn't fun anymore. So I think for all intents and purposes, me watching and analyzing a friend's band still kind of in a different way gives me joy. It's like you got to find joy from the actual magic of making music and seeing music. But you also have to see the joy in analyzing it as well. I feel like that's the takeaway in this professional realm. Do you know what I mean?
I really do. I really understand that. I had a very similar experience where I like left an industry because I couldn't be a part of it in the way that I wanted to. And then, like I couldn't, like I don't watch dance performance anymore because I used to dance for Bangara and I left Bangara and tried to make it as try to do independent dance, contemporary work. And I felt like the industry was so detrimental to myself as a like, because I had to really work, like really, really work to make not even enough to live off.
Yeah.
And so like it just became a like, this is a hustle and this is not good for me.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like I don't watch dance anymore because I'm like, this is no longer a genre of making that speaks to me in a positive way. But like basically in every other I understand dance and I understand the language, but every other art form like I am excited about and like just I'm hungry for. I'm hungry to create in and I'm hungry to be a part of and to experience.
And I think that's a really good sign, you know, that like that's a good reminder for me to kind of keep asking myself, is this where my connection lies, you know, because sometimes you come up with an idea and it might not be a choreography or a song, or it might be a children's book, or it could be, you know, a page for a script, or, you know, like I really, really do believe that creativity knows no bounds and we all have the ability to connect with it. Rick Rubin's book, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
in terms
You don't
of,
have to be locked into a medium.
So it's like, it's just about being open to the challenge of it. You know, if you or I the next day came up with the best ukulele idea, I would go and learn ukulele. If I'm like, if I was confident and sure enough that that's what it needed to be, I'd be like, that's where we need to go. You know what I mean? Like,
that has been my like entire ethos throughout my career. Is like, I want to find the medium that serves the thing I want to make.
100%. You know, because like I take a lot of inspiration from Kendrick. I mean, as do so many other people, right? But what I love so much about what he does is he takes a different direction every single project. And I'm inspired to do the same, you know, because Waranga River Story is one thing.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, for sure. And then this next album, Marshmallow, is a very completely different thing. You know, if Warangu is an outward pushing community album, very culturally informed. It's not cultural, but it's culturally informed, and it has a lot of voices on it. Then Marshmallow has to feel, well, it's not it has to, but it just turned out to be the complete opposite. Like there's not that many other voices on it yet, and it's an inward look. It's very introspective. So, but
talk to me about culturally informed versus cultural. What's that? What is that definition for you? Because that's important.
Yeah, very much so. I think I need to know my place in terms of what I can and can't talk about. Like I'm not entitled to speak on culture, especially someone who didn't grow up in Brie. Like I know, well, what I will say is I'm very proud and strong of my roots leading back to Brie and Wilmeringal. You know, my grandmother, Mary Shearer, was born and raised in Brie, and her father was born under the birthing tree on the Colgoa River, 1 hour north of Brewarrina in a place called Wilmeringal, which is Mudawari country, and population 40. It's like house, post office, house, and the school is like, I don't know, maybe 10 kids, and they're all related. It's like that type of town, right? And it's a beautiful place, and I feel strong connections there, and I am proud to create on country and to perform on country and to workshop on country, thanks to, you know, my auntie Lily Shearer, who puts on a festival there every year called Bayami's Nunu Festival. So
how did you get involved in that?
She invited me. Yeah, she had me she had me work on, I guess, like the 6-week programming in the lead up to the festival one year, to work with the kids in Brie and teach them rap music. I made so many songs in that time. It was great. Just making like these mad like rap songs about the Mundagata or about the Guga or about, you know, like just like whatever they wanted to talk about, you know, circus music, like whatever. and then they performed it. It was so sweet, you know, and it's important to me. But with this album, I also don't want to lie about, one, where I'm getting the information from, and two, about like myself as like some sort of friggin', you know, here's an album that, you know, best represents Nyamba and Mudurori culture. I'm not that guy. All I can do is position myself as the reporter, as like the detective, you know, as the person who's gathering information as an artist and disseminating it through my artistic interpretation. And that's all I can do.
So in a sense, that album's a concept album.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And so, you know, a big thanks to Brad Stedman, you know, because he's a massive integral part of the album. Like we start and end that story, Warangu River story, with him.
How was Brad involved?
So I came to him one day and was like, hey, you know, I've got this funding to make this album. I know it's going to be about the river, but I don't know enough. Can you help me? And he said, yeah, brother, pick me up tomorrow at 8.
Okay.
And I was like, all right.
Tomorrow.
Thanks, son. And so I showed up at his place at 8 a.m. and he was like, all right, we're going to drive down to the Bergen River, because I was in Brie at the time.
Yeah.
And then he's so funny, man. He like didn't say much. And I had my like little Zoom recorder.
Cool.
Researching. We're researchers. Artists are researchers. And he didn't say much on the ride. And we got out of the car and I followed him. And he just goes to the Bergen River. This is 2018. So before the massive drought leading into the Menindee Lake fish kills.
Yeah.
1 million fish dying in Menindee Lakes. And we're walking along the Bergen River. And you can hear the crunchy, dry riverbed on the start of that album. And I actually say in the recording, we're right in the riverbed, aren't we? And that's how the album starts. You start listening with as much or as little knowledge as I know. So you learn alongside with me.
Amazing.
You know, and I think that's such a beautiful thing, because that's what I needed to do to feel like I'm not being some sort of, you know, entitled imposter, like knowing more than I know. Yeah. I don't know anything, and this is my research.
You're
right?
a conduit for this story.
I'm listening to Brad Stedman, who has the knowledge, you know, and his message it's so simple and powerful. These rivers all interconnect with each other. The Colgo River, the Barwon River, and the Bergen River to the south. Colgo being in Wilmeringal, Barwon going across Brie, Nyamba country. These rivers all intersect within 1 kilometer of each other, just west of Brie. And he says, if there's water in this river, in the Bergen River, and you were still up at Brie, the pattern that your feet make in the river will line up with mine. Cool. Because it all leads into the same thing. He talks about the fish traps, the very famous fish traps in Brewarrina.
Yeah.
He said there's fish traps in the Bergen River too. It goes all up and down the Murray-Darling. So it's not just about one place. It's about country, capital C, you know. It took me a while to understand and really grasp what he's talking about. But in the midst of composing the album, I started to really connect with it, even before I understood it, if that makes sense. So, yeah.
Yeah. How does hip hop and that style of storytelling for you fit into the story of that album? Like, was there ever a time where you questioned whether hip hop was the right?
No, there wasn't. I don't think there was ever a time where I questioned it, because I'm so stubborn, but also very, very confident. I truly believe in hip hop culture and hip hop music as a language, as the right language to speak on it. What I was unsure about was the non-hip hop stuff.
Yeah.
How do I engage classical music? Because the album is multi-genre.
It's diverse. Yeah.
You know, and this is purely from the ethos of the album. If the album is about the diversity of these rivers, about multiple stories of these rivers, the Mundugada story in the what they call the Nyandu, the Kogo River, and the Wawangu story in Brewarrina, two different stories about the same thing, what white people call the rainbow serpent. It's going to have different. Then you need a Murawari person talking about that story. You need a Nyamba person talking about that story. So not only is it different voices, it's different styles. Kelsey Straussick Barker is on the album too, and her song Rivers Run Dry is on the album. It's like not hip hop at all. It's a folk song, and she's a proud Yuwalarai Murawari woman, and she needed to be on that album to fully tell the story of what these rivers mean.
What was the process of working with her like?
Oh, the best, yeah, because she's like family, So the way that it works, the way that it happened is that she played that song to me 2019 for Bayami's Nonu Festival, for Lil's festival, in front of the driest, bare bones Barwon River that you've ever seen in 2019. No water running through it at all. And we sang Rivers Run Dry, and my dad's there filming it on his iPad, his tablet thing. And I was like, this song, it deserves a place in this greater story. And so I pitched that idea to her, and she was really down. And she was like, oh, that sounds amazing, brother. So cool. I'm really, really grateful for her trusting her story within the greater story of Warangu. Yeah. I think it makes it so beautiful. I can't imagine the album without her song in it. Yeah. It makes total sense. And I couldn't do that song justice. It needed to come from her.
Like you draw the ego out of it, and you're like, this is
100%.
It needs to be this.
Yeah.
It needs to be you.
Exactly.
Where did you record that?
We recorded that. Oy, that's a great question. Between here in Sydney, and she recorded on her side of like in her. It was either in Lightning Ridge or it was up north, close to Byron Bay. Okay. I'm trying to remember exactly how we made it happen because it was years ago now.
Yeah, like that was a long process for that album. Yeah. Yeah. Well, not necessarily long, but like.
Yeah. And then I added some other stuff on it, like keys and drums. And
sure, yeah.
We recorded her father, Uncle Tommy Barker, saying Murawari words that I spliced into woven throughout. Yeah.
Cool. Where does that album finish? What's the
album finishes where it starts in the Bogan River. So throughout all the stories that I'm telling about these rivers, it's cyclical, because Brad Stedman starts the story talking about, he has this great line where he's like, how people are really interested in like 2D or 3D imagery or whatever. He's like, these old people are talking about 6D. And I was like, whoa. And so he's yarning about 6D, and that, our mob can, we read our country in waterways, we understand it. We know what it needs, what it wants, what it, how it lives and breathes.
Was that, sorry to interrupt, was that in the like same conversation as the original? Yeah. Or was that was like a future, like
same
you came
conversation.
Back? Okay.
Wow. Yeah. So I start and end with that, and it's to say that it's to say that these rivers, are interconnected. The stories are interconnected, and the significance of these rivers are relevant and should resonate with not just Indigenous people, but non-Indigenous people, and that we keep finding ourselves back again to the same conversation, the same story. I guess that's kind of one of the things that I wanted to portray. Other than the fact that I also really like albums and stories that do this, I think that was from an inspiration of Bob Dylan, where he does that thing where, like in All Along the Watchtower, where he starts where he finishes where he starts, and it's like the same Joker and the thief. They can't get out. There must be some way out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I love that sort of storytelling, you know?
Yeah.
And that's another thing that I'm really driven and inspired by is cyclical storytelling or time travel storytelling. My favorite stories are time travel stories, which is kind of what this next album is about.
Cool.
Yeah.
Time travel movies?
Yeah.
Time travel short
Best
stories?
one,
Yeah.
Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've watched in my research so many time travel stories. So that one's the first one. And then the second one is a horror film called Triangle.
Okay.
Have you seen that?
I don't know.
Oh, it's the best.
I'm also very into time travel stories.
You got to watch Triangle.
Have you seen Looper?
Yes. Yeah. That's great.
I love that.
That's
I saw that at the cinema. I was like,
yeah.
Gave me a really newfound like love, not just for Bruce Willis, but for Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Yeah, he's so good, right?
He's amazing. Yeah.
The way it starts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, wild. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's a great film. There's another one called, it's not The Prestige. There's like a something about the only way I can describe the film is like spoiling it, so I won't do it.
Oh,
but there's we'll talk after.
We'll do our own little movie night. I would.
Yeah, man. But
the album, how long was that to make for you? Where did it was a huge project. Like, how did you get funding for it? How did the idea come about?
Yeah, I'm very grateful to get the funding for it from Create New South Wales. And I wouldn't have applied for that if it weren't for Chris Sainsbury.
Okay.
So, you know, he's a Durrig man, a composer and lecturer at ANU, School of Music in Canberra. And he tapped me on the back to apply for what they called the Indigenous Composers Initiative back in the day. And so I was like a lot of other people who were applying for it or whatever. Oh, it's like, I'm not that person. Like, I'm not a composer, right? Like, I had a lot of imposter syndrome about that because I'm like, I just make rap. But he helped me really sort of understand that the stories are what matter, and you don't have to be some Mozart or Bach to be able to compose. That's a really bad and counterproductive perspective to put on yourself and composition. So I applied for it, and I had the most amazing time, and I worked with Ensemble Offspring to like create my first composition. And then afterwards he said, you know, you should take that composition and use it as evidence, as support material to apply for this other thing called the Peter Sculthorpe Fellowship. And I said, okay, I'll do that. And then I friggin' got in. And that was, you know, wild, because that was real funding, like some really good funding to be able to create an album. And I knew it was going to be about the river, about Brewarrina, but again, I didn't know what. And so through talking with Brad, through talking with Kelsey, through talking with Lil, my grandmother, Uncle Tommy, Brad, you know, like, I realized that the story is way bigger than I thought. It's not just about these cultural stories, but it's about the over-irrigation of these rivers.
When did you know that you wanted to make an album about the river?
When I knew I wanted to make a story about Brewarrina ever since I started going there from Wollongong to Brewarrina as a kid.
Okay.
I wanted to somehow tell a story. I didn't know what it was. Later on, as I got older, I was like, it'll be a hip hop album or a hip hop song or something like that. I didn't know what it was. And then when the funding came through, when I applied for the funding, then I understood more and more as I had performed there that I was like, the river feels right because we're river people. And so that kind of felt...
That's the story you had to tell.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it was really not much more than that.
Okay.
It was just that instinct to be like, it needs to be about this, but I don't know what. And, you know, I'm not a, what do you call it? I'm not a water expert, and I'm still not. But I then learned through this project that, you know, there's a lot to fight for. And there's a lot of fight that people have already been fighting for. Not just mob, but just your general politician, people who prioritize water rights, and who want to stop over irrigation and floodplain harvesting and privatization of our waters by foreign companies. All of this stuff that's really like screwing up our Murray-Darling Basin, you know. So I'm getting more confident in talking about it. I still know what I don't know, but I also know that this album plays a big part of it, you know, and I hope it does for years to come. You know.
Is it like while you were doing this, I also remember like you were having singles coming out that like you had the single come out in 2020 that was fairly huge.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, what you were making the album at the time and releasing singles.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That album was, you know, running through my mind from the end of 2017 onwards, and then COVID happened. I was actually going to sort of quote unquote release it in 2020, and I'm glad I didn't.
I think we had a conversation about it.
Yeah. I'm really, really glad I didn't, because it wasn't ready, you know.
Yeah. When did you know it was ready?
When I was sick of it.
Cool.
When I was done with it.
Yeah.
When I'm like, I can't.
You're done when you're done.
I can't look at it anymore. I was like, it needs to come out. Yeah, that's when I knew, because like a lot of artists, we're perfectionists, you know. So I still listen to it and I'm like, this could have been different. This could have been different, you know. But at some point you got to share it.
Yeah. How do you feel? Like, do you go back in and go like, oh, I could jump back into the mix session and just play and tweak and do a new version of this?
I think I realized once it was released that there was no more I could do. And that was cool.
It's like it has to be gone.
That it has to be done. And it helped me to walk away from it. Yeah.
When you're working on something, when you're making, do you listen to other things to inspire you, or do you close off?
I definitely listen to a lot of stuff, but it's not just music. Sometimes it'll be podcasts. I try not to listen to much hip hop. I like to listen to, there's a playlist on Spotify called Lava Lamp.
Okay.
That helps me to just sort of like get into a bit of an introspective thing. That's been helping for the Marshmallow album, actually. Like just kind of just listening and appreciating tones, you know, and pads and textures in music. And then other times it's like indie rock or like, you know, indie pop, or it's weird, eh?
Yeah.
My tastes change from time to time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm going to do a whole episode on something at one point. That's my friend and I, Al, that was on an episode a few weeks ago, we were laughing about it because I'm very into folk punk.
Nice. That's cool.
My partner hates it, and like I've been listening to it for the last 4 years since COVID. Like I really got into it when I was feeling quite anxious.
Sure.
And so
I feel you.
Tristan's gonna laugh at me at some point. I do this like big deep dive into folk punk. But Marshmallow, like the big kind of flip from this album about the rivers and about country to this introspective, more Dobby album. How would you describe what is the feel of Dobby
in this album?
In general, and specifically coming into this album.
I mean, it's taking a long time for me to realize that as artists, you're not abandoning yourself by going with your gut and trying something completely different. It's another side of you. And I got to practice what I preach right now, because a lot of the time I'll be like, no, this isn't right, or it's not me, you know. And that's a really counterproductive thought, right? Again, Kendrick Lamar, like he makes these albums that are completely different. Like Damn is nowhere near the same material as Mr. Morale, which is a therapy work. Marshmallow is definitely a therapy work. It's taken me a while to realize that, and it's taken experience and years of my life to like see that play out. It's so interesting how like art can imitate life, but also life can inform the art, you know. You know, that what I wanted the album to be in 2017, which is when I started working on this as well. You know, I had the same idea, very close to when I had Warangu's idea.
2017 was like
that was a year.
That was like a conceptual year for you.
It was a year for me. Yeah,
big starts.
I think there's something in that. Yeah. But
and you're tying the threads together.
And so what that album was like me being like, I want to grab that album that I made in 2009 and bring it back to the future, to save what I had and to finish it. But slowly I'm realizing that it's also struggling to deal with acceptance and growth, because not everyone has a time machine. Not everyone can go back into the past and fix something. You have to live with these things. So what does that look like as well, you know? So there's so many things in it.
What is, this may be a personal question, but what is it that you're wanting to fix?
This is that's the crux right there, you know, like what do I want to fix? It's I'm trying to fix an uncomfortable feeling in myself where I feel like I've lost something. I'm disconnected from what I'm engaging in. Maybe it's a sense of losing myself in the industry. Maybe it's me not being happy with the person I am or the work that I'm doing. There's a lot of questions I need to ask myself, you know, because I keep separating my inner child and my younger self from me now, like as if I've lost him.
Yeah.
But if he truly is within me right now, then how do I bring him back?
Yeah. And that like 2009 album was that inner child making.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Exactly.
How are you tapping into that? Or how are you trying to tap into that, I guess?
So many different ways.
Yeah.
Therapy.
Okay.
Therapy. A lot of research. And again, this is what I love about what music can do for us. Warangu helped me become a researcher and a reporter for not our mob, but like for my engagement with culture. I can't speak for anyone else but myself. This album is heading into a lot of psychology, because I'm heading into like these beautiful, just on the fringes, because I'm not a scientist, but these pockets of like neuroscience and tenacity and willpower. And so I'm reading a lot of stuff about, I'm on podcasts with Andrew, like I'm listening to Andrew Huberman podcasts about
like you're interested.
Because I, not only that, but I have to be, if I want to accurately look at, because what this Marshmallow album is about, it's based on the Stanford marshmallow experiment. Do you know the one in the 60s where they sat kids down with the marshmallow in front of them, aged 3 to 5 years old, and they said, don't eat this marshmallow. And in 15 minutes, I'm going to come back, and if you haven't eaten it, you get the second marshmallow. You get 2 marshmallows. And so the kids that were able to, you know, because some of those kids, they didn't trust the scientists, and they said, no, I don't trust you for whatever reason. The kids that did resist, though, after longitudinal studies, they found out that they ended up, on the whole, doing better in career and relationships and patience and attention.
It's just a mushroom.
Delaying gratification. You know, of course, there's a lot of critiques with the
about
experiment.
That study.
For sure.
Yeah.
But my takeaway personally is like, this album that I made, I never finished, and I want to be able to come back to that, because that is my higher reward. That's my higher goal. But there's got to be a healthy way to do it, because you can obsess too much, you know. the most obvious example I could think of this is, if you try and resist too much of anything, it can lead to bad health problems. Like if you're trying to get skinny, you might end up, psychologically driving yourself to anorexia. Like there's
Sure,
so
yeah,
many
yeah.
ways that we can actually be unhealthy about engaging in our tenacity and willpower. So I'm learning more and more about this stuff, and it's fascinating. So again, the power of music, right? And the power of hip hop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So talk to me about like going into a session, like a
Yeah.
creative session. What's your process from going like, I'm Ryan,
Yeah.
day to day, living my life, to going into the studio?
Yeah. Lately, and amazingly, I'm in a great time in my life where there's a great team behind me. I'm in a great relationship, and I'm learning more and more to balance it all. Because I don't want my work to coincide with to affect my relationship, and
Yeah.
also vice versa. I don't want my relationship to coincide with my work. So how do I balance these things? And I'm learning that more. I feel like a year ago I was kind of it was unbalanced,
Okay.
and I would spend weeks in the studio, and I think that's fine, but I don't think I was necessarily doing my health a good favor.
Yeah.
I want to figure out what this balance looks like for me.
Yeah. But you
Now.
were enjoying it at the time. But it's
Exactly.
not necessarily. And
Yeah.
it's okay to acknowledge that.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so the lessons these days is like boundaries, you know, and also self-sabotage. Like,
Okay.
when do I identify when I'm actually, you know, sabotaging myself or my career and then blaming it on someone else? Um,
How has that process of like going into the studio, going into creativity mode changed over time for you?
I'm learning how to treat it as a window of time,
Okay.
because
Like, do you set it beforehand? Like, I'm going to be in for 4 hours, or I'm going to be.
yeah, that's
Okay.
right.
Wow.
Yeah. But I need to be better at it, because sometimes I'm still like finding myself like doom scrolling.
Instead of being in the creative process, you're
Yeah, so
like
it's yeah,
procrastinating. Yeah.
exactly. So I just need to. There's still so much work for me to sort of get to, to master that. Yeah, I don't know how you go, but like in terms of like, I'm like, you know, like,
It's,
how do you set 20 minutes or an hour or 90 minutes of work and then rest and then 90 minutes or.
Yeah. Do you just go, okay, I'm doing it now? Or are you like going for a walk? What does that look like
I
for
have
you?
to go for a walk. Yeah, because my studio has no window.
All right.
So I'm like, I get stuck in like a
Yeah. Where is your studio?
dark.
What
Oh,
is?
yeah. So I have a studio at Church Street Studios in Camperdown, and I love the place. Great community as well, and
Yeah, there's a few people. Lots of people have a
it's
studio there.
great.
Yeah.
And it really kicks my ass, because I'm like down the corridor from Caitlin Yo, like an award-winning composer and a great friend, and then there's Sean Carey and Tony Buchan upstairs, and Mindy Quanton from
Yeah.
Bow and Arrow opposite me. So there's like a lot of inspiration. There's no shortage of that. And it kind of also helps to treat it like a job, where I'm like, oh, I'm clocking in. I'm clocking into work, So yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Is it an everyday?
Trying to.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But at the same time, there's also, my partner's helping me also look at the weekend as like moments of rest,
Sure.
which I still struggle with.
Yeah. What did you do before that?
Oh, I just worked.
You just worked.
Yeah, I just work every day, every night.
Yeah.
And now I can kind of see that actually also affected my diet.
Okay.
I wasn't really eating too well.
Yeah.
Like, I was either not eating enough or eating shit, So that's also helping me understand what I'm doing, Yeah.
Do you find that with the like change in approach of having the like, okay, I'm gonna I'm working now.
Yep.
Versus I'm working all the time. Has your output or like what you're getting out of it changed? Do you feel more?
That is something I'm still trying to figure out. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I don't know if I have a bird's eye view yet on my trends in terms of how much I'm outputting. It feels like it's healthier, but at the same time, I still have so much writer's block that I'm still working through. I cut myself some slack. Like I've been writing good stuff in the past year, but I have also been still struggling to get something solid down in the time given. So something needs to change, whether or not I have more time or I need to approach the window better and there's like no distractions.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's like honoring when it is that I do feel inspired and to think, like, so yeah, I'm still trying to figure it out.
Dropping everything. I'm going to the studio.
And the other thing is like, I think I'm also trying to combine stuff too much. Like this is really bad to say, but like sometimes I'll try and think of lyrics or like listen to my instrumentals whilst driving. But at the same time,
that's when I do my best work, by the way.
You reckon?
When I'm driving.
Yeah.
Long 2-hour trip.
Because it gives you that,
Yeah.
But I also feel like maybe my brain needs a break at times when I'm like, all right, I can't just keep it. Because this thing where like I listen to the same instrumental expecting a different outcome and expecting a line to come in. Sometimes it pays off. Sometimes it definitely doesn't. And then you hate the beat. So it's like, oh my God, what am I doing to myself? I'm like sabotaging, So the relationship is still unclear to me whether or not it's the best way to work with my in my career. So I'm still trying to figure that out.
How would you describe your artistic aesthetic?
Do you mean in terms of like the sound or the like, I don't know.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the sound.
Yeah.
Sound. Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely have a flair of it comes down to rhythm, but it has a flair of these symphonic textures that I just love so much. Because I'm definitely a big fan of cinematic soundtracks and all of the Johann, what's his name? Who did he did Black Panther. He did Wakanda Forever.
Oh yeah,
what's his name? Oh my God, mind blank.
Yeah,
but that guy.
Yeah,
he's fantastic, and he did Oppenheimer and all this stuff. Yeah. I love and appreciate classical music and just strings in general. I'm a big fan of. So I try and bring that in. And I guess my mission is to bring hip hop more to them and bring them more to hip hop in my own little way. That's why Warango is what it is, because I wanted it to be hugely supported by this like classical sound, But now Marshmallow is like, it's more towards the hip hop sound, but how do I bring that classical sounds, back in, So,
the vibe and the feeling of it.
Yeah. Because another one of my huge goals, apart from being a big band drummer rapper, is to have, the Sydney Symphony Orchestra backing my music, like they did with Moju, like they did with Electric Fields,
Cool.
Because I love that stuff, and I want to work, closely with them and understand how arrangements work and what type of things that they would do. We're working on another show for Warango River Story coming up soon, and I am working closely with Novak Manojevic, and he hope I didn't butcher his last name. He's an incredible composer, pianist, and arranger that grew up in Wollongong as well.
Oh, cool. How are you working with him?
Yeah, just like getting him to take the music that I've written and add new music, like his own interpretation.
Cool.
Like, and that, which is wild to me, because like it's all been in my head in my bedroom for so long, and now I'm getting someone else to like respond musically for the strings and the horns, and it's so mad, you know. Like,
how being a like, this is, I don't want to like put this label on you with if you don't kind of vibe with it, that's cool. Being a like bedroom producer, bedroom composer, how do you transfer like creating in that way to a live show, to a live experience?
Yeah, right. I think it's a lot of envisioning. Yeah, it's me knowing what I like. I put myself in the crowd and I ask myself, what would I like to see? You know, like there was a song that I did, which I should probably revisit at some point. It's called "What Up," and I did this for like Big Sound 2018, and it was like Big Sound "What Up," and I kept doing it everywhere. Sydney, what up? Adelaide, what up? Me and Jim, what up? Whatever it was, and the whole song was like, the idea was me rapping with my younger self. So I had this other vocal in the track that was my younger self, and I was rapping back and forth to him. So we'd like trade bars, you know, and
Cool.
he'd go and I go. But of course, there's no one on the stage, or like maybe it's him on the stage, you know. But like I go back and forth, and I'm talking to this invisible person, and that song cuts out, and everyone thinks it's done, but then it comes back, and it's like magic tricks, you
Cool,
know. And
yeah.
I love magic tricks. So like, you know, I wanted to bring, like, I'm like, how do I make a magic trick? How do I pull off a magic trick as a musician? And that's what it looks like, you know.
Cool.
So I love that stuff. Like that's kind of, I want to do more stuff that makes you go, oh, I haven't seen that before. Oh, I haven't heard of a time travel story album before. I haven't seen someone rapping to his inner child before, you know. I love that stuff, you know. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.